Okay. So, very good afternoon to everyone watching us across live from across the globe. So, we welcome you everyone to our webinar on updates in the management of pancreatic cancer, which is being supported by AstraZeneca. So, without much delay, I would like to hand over the mic to Dr. Ghanshyam Biswas sir, who is a medical oncologist and executive director of Spurs Hospitals, Bhubaneswar. Sir, I would like to hand it over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Ashish, and thank you, AstraZeneca, for supporting this webinar. So, friends, so this is the seventh webinar in this series, and we are happy that people are liking our program. And today, for next 1 hour, we'll see how things have gone or fared well in terms of pancreatic cancer, which is supposed to be one of those hard to treat disease. And we have seen in the recent past many of the celebrities and VIPs getting these cancers, and quite a few mortality because of these cancers. You will clear the slide now, Ashish?
Yes, yes, sir. Should I start your slides? Should I start your slides or Prashant sir? Who is going to start? Sir?
Yes, I can start if you
No, no,
want.
no. I can start now. More clear first.
Okay, okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You will start it, sir. I'll just share the slides.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, so looking at the epidemiology and role of this mutation, BRCA mutations in pancreatic cancer. Next. So let us look at the current state of pancreatic cancer treatment. Next. So patients with pancreatic cancer, we know that they have a dismal prognosis. The majority of them, they will die within the first year of diagnosis. So since this is a retroperitoneal organ, and many a times they are diagnosed late, because many a times the symptoms are vague. In a middle-aged person, sometimes newly detected of a diabetes is there. Many patients present with a back pain, and they land up with orthopedicians, and many will have a gradual loss of weight, and that's how. So this patient comes to a physician or a surgeon or a gastroenterologist, and then the diagnosis is made. If you look at the survival rate, even in the developed countries, so 1 year, so probably 1 out of 5, and we hardly see any patient surviving for 5 years and 10 years. But every of us in the practice probably will have one of those outliers, so who are going to survive beyond one's expectations. Next. So moreover, there have been no improvement in survival rates for patients with pancreatic cancer in the last 4 decades. Whereas if we talk about 4 decades back, so nothing was there for even lung cancers, ovarian cancer, kidneys, and many common cancers. And today you see that lung, ovary, kidneys, bladder, breast cancer, prostate, malignant melanoma. So there are first line of treatment, second line of treatment, third line of treatment, getting a good overall response rate, good survival in terms of PFS and OS. But that was not so if we talk about the pancreatic cancers. Next. So we say that this is a very tough disease, or disease, or hard to treat disease. So are diagnosed in advanced and unresectable. So probably 2 out of 10 probably goes for a surgery. Of those who have resections, so adjuvant therapy, post-adjuvant therapy for a few months, maybe around 6 months, but most of these patients will relapse in next 5 years. So cure rates are only 1 out of 10. Median survival of patients with metastasis without treatment, probably they hardly see for 3 months or so. As I said, so there will be an outlier patients who will have a long-term survival, and we see in many cancers and with any of these physicians. Next. Next. Almost 500,000 new cases of pancreatic cancer were diagnosed in 2018 globally. The prevalence of pancreatic cancer is higher in the developed countries, so probably because of the lifestyle, and many times because of the awareness which is predominantly not there in the developing countries. If we see pancreatic cancers on the right side of this graph, so we can see, so it is not among those common 10 cancer incidents, but you can see a 2.5% incidence. Next. But in terms of mortality, so definitely pancreatic cancer is among those 10. So after other common cancers like lung, breast, colorectal, and stomach. Next. So now the importance is that the prevalence of homologous recombination related gene mutations across multiple cancer types, I mean solid tumors. So you can see the pancreas has almost a modest activity or mutations we can see as compared to, so more commonly seen in gynecological cancers and few of the GI cancers, and so pancreas is one of them. So where you see lots of prevalence, the homologous recombination related gene mutations. Next. So coming to prevalence of gene mutation in pancreatic cancers, so 85% will be negative, but 15% will have BRCA mutations and some others like CDKN2, MSH, and PALB2. So out of BRCA1 and BRCA2, we know that in ovarian cancers, BRCA1, and in breast cancer also BRCA1 is more common, but in pancreatic and prostate, so BRCA2 is more common. Next. So molecular profiling studies have demonstrated that mutations in DNA repairs are highly actionable in pancreatic tumors. So overall 15% of mutations occurs in DNA repair genes, with ARIDIA1A, ATM, and BRCA2 being the most common of this. Next. So BRCA1 and BRCA2 are proteins involved in the homologous recombination repair, that is HRR pathways, and this has been quite a buzz because of ovarian cancers. We know that so lots of PAP inhibitors had got approved, especially in the maintenance therapy. So in germline BRCA mutated patient, the HRR pathway. Let's go back. So in germline BRCA mutated patient, the HRR pathway is disrupted, causing cells to rely on other mechanisms of DNA repair like direct reversal, base excision repair, nucleoside excision repair, mismatch repair, and we have all examples for that. For a base excision repair, we normally talk about the PARP inhibitors, and in the nucleotide excision repair, so the ERCC1, and in the DNA double strands BRCA, so we normally talk about the BRCA1 and 2 and PALB2. Next. So there are two types of BRCA gene mutations. So normally we talk about germline, and slowly the importance of somatic is coming up. So in germline BRCA mutations, normally we do it from the peripheral blood. For somatic, you normally require a tumor tissue. So if you put together BRCA germline and somatic, so that is the total cohort. So but predominantly it is a germline mutations. The germline is basically inherited from parents, present in every cells of the body, whereas somatic is not inherited. So normal cells do not have this germline mutation. Next. So it is estimated that less than 10%, so that is 1 out of 15 of pancreatic cancers have germline BRCA mutations. The prevalence you can see that can vary from geography and ethnic group. So 1 out of 15, and amongst BRCA1 and BRCA3, so BRCA2 is more common than BRCA1. So if you put the ratio, so 1 versus 2 will be 1:3, and there are certain ethnic group where it will be predominant BRCA. We know that the Jewish groups and patients, people with family history. Next. So BRCA2 is a major contributing gene in the hereditary pancreatic cancers. 3 to 10% of pancreatic cancer patients have family history. 10 to 20% of pancreatic cancer is thought to be due to heritable cause. BRCA2 variant is in 2% of unselected pancreatic cancers, but if it is a familial, so that can go up to 10%. and BRCA1 in the unselected will be 1%, and if in a familial, so it is nothing, not more significant like the BRCA2. Next. So data suggests that germline BRCA mutated pancreatic cancer is more likely to develop in a younger patients. So if you see the non-germline BRCA mutated pancreatic cancer, so they are usually more than 60 years, whereas the BRCA mutated patients are usually a younger patient population, that is less than 60 years. Next. So does this germline BRCA mutation in pancreatic cancer has a the slides are not there. Ashish, the slides are there. So the prognostic value of the prognostic value of this germline BRCA mutation remains unclear, because one of the studies showed that there is a survival advantage, whereas the other studies have shown that there is no survival benefit. Next. So the POLO trial, which we'll be talking at length. So Dr. Saurav Mishra will talk that. So POLO has provided the most comprehensive data set to date for germline BRCA mutation in metastatic pancreatic cancers. So pre-screening identified a BRCA mutation in 6% of patients with unknown BRCA status. Next. So, however, evidence suggests that BRCA mutation is a predictive. So we saw that, so prognostically doesn't have much value, but it suggests that BRCA mutation is predictive of a better outcome to platinum-based therapy, and we have already seen those in triple-negative breast cancers and platinum-sensitive breast cancer and the ovarian cancers. So if you go by the OS of a platinum treatment for germline BRCA mutated pancreatic cancers, so you see a platinum versus non-platinum. So platinum versus, the slides are gone, Ashish, again. So definitely a significant difference. If the same thing OS by platinum treatment for the homologous recombination DNA damage repair mutated, again, so the platinum group has a significant as compared to a non-platinum. Next. So this is already in place in the NCCN guidelines, but yet to find its place in the ESMO. Maybe this year we will see the ESMO is also putting up. So locally advanced, good PS pancreatic cancers, adenocarcinomas. So BRCA mutated, if it's there, then we for a fit patients, so FOLFIRINOX or a bit of modified of FOLFIRINOX is the choice, or a gemcitabine cisplatin. And if they are not BRCA mutated, then another choice can be a gemcitabine with nab-paclitaxel. In a metastatic setting, so we know that where not even a surgery is remotely possible. So again, for BRCA mutated, it remains the same like a locally advanced, and for non-mutated, it remains the same like the options in the locally advanced group. Next. So these are the NCCN guidelines updated 2020. So how do you plan your workup for a locally advanced or a metastatic pancreatic cancers, adenocarcinomas? Next. So this is for a metastatic disease. Now you can see that the germline testing has been in place. Next. So this is the principle of systemic therapy, which we have already discussed. Next. So this is my last slide. So to conclude, so we have seen in the recent past, celebrity and many VIPs have been affected with this disease. So if you come to incidence in the cancer list globally, so definitely not among the common 10, but yes, in terms of mortality, so it comes almost in the 7 amongst 10. So hard to treat disease, which has no much options sometime back till nab-paclitaxel and gemcitabine became a standard, and FOLFIRINOX became a standard. And today we are talking about 7% of this patient population, younger patient population, who will have a BRCA mutations, and where we have a choice, and that has been in the maintenance, that is olaparib in the POLO trial, which we'll hear from our expert speakers. So predictive, yes, prognostic. So we are not very sure at this moment. And I think so. If something has happened in pancreatic cancer, so this was that the breakthrough. So understanding BRCA mutations coming from breast, then ovary, then prostate, and I think so that was a breakthrough discovery, and we have already establishing a treatment with one of the PARP inhibitors in a hard to treat disease. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think next Prashant sir is going to present. So I'll just start his slide.
सौरभ सर ज्वाइन कर ले.
Ashish,
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Prashant, go ahead.
So you can change the slides from your side
hello,
as well.
I'm audible.
Yes, sir. You can click on next also from your side to change the slides. Sir, I've started it. You can start.
Prashant, slides are there. Please start, no?
You can start.
Okay. Thank you, Ashish. Good afternoon, everyone. So I will briefly discuss about the management of metastatic pancreatic cancer. So a lot of recent advances has occurred, especially you have already had the excellent lecture from Dr. Biswas about the olaparib PARP inhibitors and other molecularly targeted therapy, as well as several novel agents like nab-paclitaxel. So a few decades back, next slide, Ashish. Yes. Few decades back, we have very handful of molecules, and 5FU based therapy was the standard of care, and the outcome was very dismal. So metastatic pancreatic patients, they hardly survive 4 to 6 months. But nowadays, we have a lot of molecules has been and targeted agents has been added to the treatment armamentarium of metastatic pancreatic cancer. So if you see the treatment paradigm, about 60% of newly diagnosed pancreatic cancer present as metastatic therapy, and we can think of curative intent. But in most of the patients, they present with disseminated, widespread metastatic disease. So the palliative chemotherapy is the standard. Next. So whenever we start or decide the chemotherapy, especially the first line chemotherapy in metastatic or advanced pancreatic cancer, lot of factors should be taken into account, especially performance status, which is very important, age, other comorbidity conditions like cardiac disease, neuropathies, risk of endobiliary stent complications, because some of them they present with obstructive jaundice, so they required some procedures like ERCP and stenting to bypass or to dilate these biliary channels. And patient preference, convenience is also important, but predictive biomarkers is a unmet need, though in future we may have some biomarkers to decide which treatment is required for which patient, so that will be a better personalization of therapy in this malignancy. Next. So we have already discussed the performance status. So how this performance status is important in advanced pancreatic cancer? One of the meta-analysis of randomized trials, they confirm that orphan status is very important, determining who is more likely to benefit from combination chemotherapy. And if you can see, if orphan status is good, that means ECOG orphan status of 0, 1 or 1, they will benefit from combination chemotherapy. Whereas those having poor orphan status, they will not benefit from combination. They can be treated with a single agent therapies like gemcitabine. Next. So before gemcitabine, we have the only options of 5-FU based therapy, and the outcome 4 to 6 months for so recently this gemcitabine was the mainstay of treatment before few of these novel agents and targeted therapy has been approved. Next. So there are some selected phase 3 trials of gemcitabine based combination. Several molecules including platinums, especially cisplatin, oxaliplatin, carboplatin, capecitabine, pemetrexed or irinotecan, they have been combined with gemcitabine to improve the outcome, but though there is a marginal improvement in survival, but no, not significant, but previous one. So several targeted therapy has been also combined with this gemcitabine, but except this erlotinib is a EGFR TKI and NAP paclitaxel, no other targeted therapy has been shown to improve the outcome or survival in this group of patients. Next. So this is a landmark trial of gemcitabine plus erlotinib. You can see the median survival has improved, which was significant. Next. This is next. So several meta-analysis has been conducted of gemcitabine combination, and you can see the platinum-based combination and fluoropyrimidine-based combination in the meta-analysis has showed improvement in survival, but not the other gemcitabine-based combination like pemetrexed, irinotecan, or exatecan. So based upon these trials, platinum gemcitabine or platinum gemcitabine fluoropyrimidine combination was the standard of care in metastatic pancreatic cancer patients. Next. So next came the one of the important trial. Recently, it has been published in NEJM, and they have compared gemcitabine single agent versus FOLFIRINOX. That means 5-FU, leucovorin, oxaliplatin, and irinotecan. So this FOLFIRINOX was overall survival. Next. You can see there was an improvement of overall as well as PFS, almost doubling of PFS from 3.3 to 6.4 months with this FOLFIRINOX combination versus gemcitabine, and also there was a doubling, almost doubling of median overall survival of with FOLFIRINOX when compared with the gemcitabine in this ACCORD or 24 trial. Next, but this FOLFIRINOX is much more toxic than the other combination. If you will compare the safety profile, there are a lot of patients, almost increase in percentage of neutropenia, febrile neutropenia, thrombocytopenia, diarrhea. So this should be weighed against the benefit of this FOLFIRINOX against the toxicity. So most of in our patient we choose those who are fit with good end organ function, orphan status. So this FOLFIRINOX should be preferred over the single agent gemcitabine. Next. Then another phase 3 trial, the MPACT study, which has compared the NAP paclitaxel, the albumin-bound paclitaxel with gemcitabine versus single agent gemcitabine. The primary endpoint was overall survival, and next, there was an improvement in overall survival as well as PFS. So the combination of gem plus NAP paclitaxel was 8.5 months versus 6.7 months, which was significant. Similarly, there was a significant improvement in PFS also in the combination of gemcitabine plus nab-paclitaxel. Next. So based upon these two trials, now the FOLFIRINOX and nab-pacli plus gemcitabine combination are the standard frontline regimens in metastatic pancreatic cancer patients. And if we compare these both the so it is just like a cost trial comparison. You can see the median PFS and OS slightly better in FOLFIRINOX arm versus nab-pacli plus them, though the FOLFIRINOX arm has more number of patients with good performance status, so you can choose. And also this FOLFIRINOX has much better, more toxicity than the single agent gemcitabine as well as nab-paclitaxel. Next. This is an retrospective analysis, and you can see the median overall survival, FOLFIRINOX 11 months, and nab-paclitaxel 10 months, and other gem combinations are only 7 months. Next. So the NCCN guideline already discussed by Vishwas sir. So you can see if patient is having good performance status, you can choose FOLFIRINOX or nab-paclitaxel. These two are preferred category 1, and also gemcitabine erlotinib one of the option. And in other regimens like CAP gemcitabine, cisplatin gemcitabine, this cisplatin gemcitabine is preferred in BRCA1, BRCA2 or PALB2 mutation patients, because it has been seen that platinum agent containing regimens are more effective in this BRCA1, BRCA2 mutation positive patients. But if patient is having poor performance status, gemcitabine as single agent can be is a better option, and some of the newer molecules like pembrolizumab and larotrectinib has been approved recently if based upon this molecular tests. Next. So selecting the second line or sequencing therapy in prostate advanced pancreatic cancer. So same factors like performance status, age, cost, comorbidity, patient choice, predictive biomarkers, also a unmet needs. So these factors also taken into account. Next. So very few patients, they are almost 50%. Historically, 50% of patients are eligible for second line therapy, and recently, until recently, there was no established standard of care for patients who have progressed on the first line gemcitabine based therapy. But as a de facto choice, post gemcitabine FOLFOX type regimen has represented the standard of care, but with mixed results. Next. So these are the trials, second line chemotherapy trials. Oxaliplatin, you can see CONCO 3 and PANPEOX trial. They have combined oxaliplatin 5-FU based combination, that is FOLFOX versus 5-FU leucovorin, and both these trials they have shown improvement in median survival in comparison to 5-FU single agent. Next. So recently the novel formulation of irinotecan, nanoliposomal irinotecan, has been approved. And this is a topoisomerase 1 inhibitor, and this liposomal formulation is affected with preferable increased tumor exposure to irinotecan and with long half-life, increased area under curve, slow clearance, and reduced volume of distribution versus the free drug. So in phase 1 trials and drug dose finding trials, it has shown better, more efficacy than the plain or conventional like irinotecan. Next. This is phase 3 trial of nanoliposomal irinotecan plus minus LB5-FU versus the single agent 5-FU. And initially, this 3-arm trial, they have compared Naliri 5-FU and combination. This combination arm has been added after the safety data were available for the single arm trials. So next. So this combination Naliri plus 5-FU, LB5-FU, you can see there was a improvement in the median overall survival versus the 5-FU leucovorin, whereas the only Naliri when compared to leucovorin 5-FU, though there is increase in overall survival, but it was not significant. So the combination of nanoliposomal irinotecan plus 5-FU leucovorin is a standard second line therapy after failure of gemcitabine based therapy. Next. So this is the meta-analysis next of the second line agents. So these are the planned sequential treatment. If someone having good performance status, you have started Gem Nab-Paclitaxel and still he is fit enough, you can still consider for FOLFIRINOX, and the median OS in that case is almost 15 months. And if you have started FOLFIRINOX, you can change to Nab-Gem-Paclitaxel and Nab-Paclitaxel-Gem. So median OS in that case will be better, almost 18 months. But the PRODIGE 35 or PAN-OPTIMOX trial, they have taken account the concept of maintenance. So they have compared continuation FOLFIRINOX versus FOLFIRINOX 4 months followed by maintenance, IBF2, and the median OS is almost similar, even better in maintenance arm. So you can give a maintenance therapy after few cycles of FOLFIRINOX also. Next. So this is our data, Indian data, TMS. They have taken almost 100 patients, and prior surgery 21 patients. These are the first line treatment in metastatic cancer patient. They have given gemcitabine and almost all the combination part we have discussed, and they have seen the overall survival has improved if patient has high level of CA, and if performance status is good or in oligometastatic disease. So in these subgroups, they have better survival. Next. Then molecular testing, already discussed by Vishwas sir excellently about this, what are the DNA defective DNA repair mechanism, BRCA1, BRCA2, PALB2. In that case, we have the choice of using platinum-based agents, even PARP inhibitor as a therapy as well as maintenance. Recently, the NTRK fusion gene has been therapy has been approved. Next. So this is about the immunotherapy. Pembrolizumab is an option in MSI high, microsatellite instability high subgroup of patients. Next. This is the larotrectinib in NTRK fusion positive solid cancers. Next. Then maintenance therapy, patients who have response or stable disease after a few cycles, you can consider for maintenance therapy. If you have used platinum-based therapy and germline BRCA2 or BRCA1 mutation, you can use olaparib as a maintenance therapy. If you have used 3 drug regimens like FOLFIRINOX, you can use as a capecitabine, FOLFIRI or FOLFOX as maintenance therapy. Or Gem plus Nab-Paclitaxel, then gemcitabine monotherapy can be used as a maintenance. Next. And recently the RECAP study, it is a second line study of capecitabine plus minus ruxolitinib. This ruxolitinib JAK2 inhibitor, and a few of the research they have seen that the JAK-STAT pathway is active in this metastatic pancreatic cancer. In survival about the combination. Next, Ashish. Next, Ashish. My slides are not moving. So, though there was no improvement in survival, but those have been they have better survival than capecitabine single agent. So, concluding my talk, germline and somatic mutation testing recommended with all patients with advanced pancreatic cancer patients. Now, the Nab-Paclitaxel Gem combination or 3-drug regimen FOLFIRINOX standard of care in frontline, especially in good performance status patients, and most patients receive both regimen if the performance status allow or they maintain their good performance status. Evidence for second line or salvage treatment with nanoliposomal irinotecan plus 5-FU has been approved after failure of gemcitabine-based therapy, and small subset of patients may benefit from targeted therapy like pembrolizumab in MSI high or NTRK fusion in patients larotrectinib, and there is hope for improved outcome of these patients through expanding research of novel and innovative approaches in future. So thank you for patient hearing.
Ashish.
Yes, sir.
So we'll go to the panel discussion till Saurabh sir reaches. Okay.
Okay, I'll just click on the panel discussion slide, sir.
Yeah.
Hello.
Is this fine, sir?
Oh.
Yeah. So Prashant.
Yes, bhai.
Yeah. So since Saurabh is unable to reach, so we'll go to the case. Okay. So we'll discuss a bit. Next. So as Dr. Prashant has beautifully narrated, so how things have fared in terms in regards to a hard to treat disease over last 2 decades. So a single agent gemcitabine, a single agent erlotinib, we had a combination of gemcitabine and erlotinib without much advantage, and then the combination of triple drug for FOLFIRINOX, then the nab-paclitaxel gemcitabine. So there is some buzz on the liposomal irinotecan, and we have already heard from at MSI high or a DNA mismatch repair tumors, so where immunotherapy. NTRK so is coming in a big way in many of the cancers, that is laratinib. And so in 2019 we are talking about olaparib maintenance after the platinum combination who have responded to the treatment as olaparib as a maintenance. So we are yet to have the survival data. Next. So factors deciding outcome in a pancreatic cancer. So Prashant, so once you see a pancreatic cancer, which you know that this patient is not a candidate to go under the surgeon's knife. So what are the things you look at before you plan for a systemic therapy? So anything besides this?
Yes, performance status, age, comorbidities, these are very important. So, in addition to that, we always also decide the financial constraint, especially in our setup. This is also important factor we should consider, and almost all these things. And though we have no such predictive biomarkers to decide any therapies. Though for gemcitabine, HENT1 was a predictive biomarker, but we have not used yet. And
Okay,
all factors you have mentioned.
So in last 20 patients of pancreatic cancers you have seen, so what is the median age of those patients and what were the commonest presentations?
Median age will be 60, around 60.
Okay.
And the commonest presentation will be pain, back pain, obstructive jaundice,
Okay.
pain abdomen. So back pain is a factor, one of the commonest presentation, and obstructive jaundice, because most of our patients, almost 75, what I have observed, 60 to 80% of patients, they present with metastatic advanced disease. So most of them, they present with obstructive jaundice as well as pain. These two are very important, most important presentations.
Absolutely right. So when they will come to you with an obstetric jaundice, so definitely you will take the help of your medical GI colleague and you will stent them. So maybe after 3 to 4 weeks, when the liver function has come to normal, then probably you will plan your systemic therapy. So in last 20 of your patients, so supposedly, and how many patients could you plan for a systemic therapy, and what are the regimens you have chosen for those patients?
So if I will consider, suppose 20 patients, out of 20, I have planned therapy for almost 12 to 15, almost 15 patients.
Okay.
And 5 patients, they are either very frail, or the patient decides not to treat them, or they want to take palliative care. So out of 15 patients, almost 5 of them, I have given single agent gemcitabine.
Okay.
Then another 5 they have taken platinum-based gemcitabine combination. Then next 5 is either nab-paclitaxel, and very few, only very few, if you will consider out of 21 or 2 FOLFIRINOX.
So what are the platinum combinations? So you prefer cisplatin, carboplatin, oxaliplatin, or you just choose any of this?
So most of them, though they present are elderly, so renal function is very important. So I usually prefer oxaliplatin, based combination. And if patient is fit enough, young, good end organ function, then I choose cisplatin or carboplatin. And if someone comes out to be this BRCA1 or mismatch repair gene deficiency like BRCA1 or BRCA2, in that case, I usually prefer platinum-based combination, gemcitabine plus platinum. And if patient is fit enough with good end organ or renal function, then I usually prefer cisplatin gemcitabine.
Now, suppose, so now we have a convincing data. We have heard about the prevalence of BRCA mutations in pancreatic cancers is such a hard to treat disease. So are you convinced with this data that 7% of the BRCA, so for next all patients you will try to convince them for doing a BRCA testing?
Yes, definitely. Even I have started recently I have started to counsel about my patients about this hereditary mutation, BRCA1, BRCA2 and other mutations. So though in most of the cases I am not able to do that, but I have started, and even I have done in very few patients. Even I have got a patient of BRCA positive metastatic pancreatic cancer. So definitely it has a role, and we should think in that way.
So will you go for a germline BRCA, or you will go for a tumor BRCA in these patients?
So germline BRCA, according to guidelines, germline BRCA is most mandatory for all patients in pancreatic cancer. And also, if somatic tissue is available, I will still go for somatic mutation testing in metastatic pancreatic cancer patients.
Like in contrast to ovarian cancers, where we have seen that if the germline mutations are around 20%, so we pick up another 8 to 10% in a somatic one. So once we do a tumor one, but ovary and pancreatic are different here. So pancreatic, many of the times we are unable to get a biopsy. So many a times it is US guided. So where you we take up FNAC, which is positive. So tissue may not be adequate for a tumor testing. So at this moment, probably a germline, we are happy with doing a germline, and even AstraZeneca is helping with the coupons. So I have been using. So I have in last 2 patients and BRCA, I have taken the help of them. So they are using the coupon. So it will be seen next 6 months or 1 year. So we'll be seeing about data that how many patients of our patient is turning out to be either BRCA1 or BRCA2.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. Next, Ashish. So yeah, you have nicely discussed. So DDR deficient predicts OS improvements in platinum treated pancreatic adenocarcinomas. So it looks like that. So these hard to treat cancer is behaving like an ovarian cancer. So we are talking slowly talking about exposure to platinum or platinum sensitive disease or a platinum treated disease. So which is equivalent to probably a BRCA-ness or BRCA positive disease. So probably that is coming in. So prior platinum resected, you can see in deficient, though they have an improved survival as compared to even in also prior platinum advanced. Next. So this is one of a VIP patient whom I have seen this month only. So earlier of this month, he's just 60 years, absolutely with a PS of 1. Came to me with a diagnosis of NIDDM. So he has been showing, so he has a diabetes of last 10 years plus, but of late his sugars have been somewhat fragile. So he was going off and on to the endocrinologist. So suddenly he found that for a few months, he has a loss of weight and loss of appetite and loss of weight. His endocrinologist suggested that probably he has changed the anti-diabetic medicine. Maybe that is causing a weight loss, because we know that there are certain drugs which causes a loss of weight. But a routine ultrasound was performed. Next. So this gentleman underwent an ultrasound where it was seen that in the pancreatic body there was a mass. The head region and tail appears normal. There is a marginal vascularity, and it was encasing the splenic artery. So what do you do next?
Hello. Yes, right.
So,
Yes.
he came with a weight loss and a labile blood sugars. He was asked to do an USG. USG showed a body mass, and there's an encasement of the great vessels there.
So this patient, the USG shows a pancreatic mass. So we have to evaluate, and staging evaluation including a CT scan abdomen, preferably a CT pancreatic protocol like MDCT, along with chest and pelvic CT, and if possible EUS, endoscopic ultrasound for staging, and FNA guided biopsy also, and the hematological biochemistry along with the tumor markers, that is CA19-9. So this test should be done for proper staging as well as confirmation of diagnosis.
So you rightly said. So this patient after an ultrasound, so this patient underwent routine blood testing, and then a CT scan abdomen and pelvis of a pancreatic protocol was performed, and ill-defined. You can see a mildly enhancing lesion in the distal body regions of pancreas with mild adjacent fat standing, encasing the splenic artery with extensions. So that was suggestive of a mucinous, according to the radiologist. Multiple ill-defined, mildly enhancing irregular deposits in the left lower para-aortic region, mesentery left side of the supraumbilical mesentery, serosal surface of the descending colon, omentum in the right lumbar regions, and rectovesical pouch. Absolutely, this patient with such a huge amount of disease, so he had a PS score of 1. So few periportal and peripancreatic node, and a borderline splenomegaly. Next. So tumor marker CA was 10.09, vitamin D was normal, CA 19.9 was 133. Next. So an endoscopic ultrasound guided FNC was done. So we showed a mucinous type. So according to our radiologist also from the USG and as a CT scan, so it will look like a mucinous, and biopsy with the intent that probably in future will require some genetic profiling because of a BIB patient. But as I said, so it was an inadequate tissue, and the patient was not keen for a repeat biopsy. Next. A PET CT was done at Prasant's place only. So large mass lesion in the distal and tail of pancreas. So primary lesion with features of local invasion, scant perilegion standings, and few peripancreatic nodes, multiple prominent peritoneal deposits in bilateral lumbar areas of abdominal cavity, no ascites or any other visceral metastasis. So how do you treat this patient? So it is your patient now. So how do you treat this patient?
So it is metastatic already because there are multiple peritoneal deposits. So a 60-year diabetic male with good performance status, and it is a pancreatic adenocarcinoma. So I will treat with, first of all, I will advise for germline mutation testing about the BRCA1, BRCA2, PAL2, as well as, if possible, though the sample is inadequate, we cannot do somatic testing here. So I will still advise I will go for germline mutation testing. After that, I will start, and then I will start palliative chemotherapy. Because he's fit enough, I will see other end organ functions, including renal function, liver function.
They're absolutely fine. They are absolutely fine.
So I will start with nab-paclitaxel or FOLFIRINOX among as a frontline therapy. Out of these two, I'll start one of them.
So you,
Sir, sorry to interrupt. Actually, Saurabh sir has joined the room, sir. So
yeah,
we
yeah,
can,
so he can be a part of this discussion.
sir, if you can turn on your camera and you can be a part of it, sir.
Saurabh, please join.
Yeah. Good afternoon. Really sorry.
Okay. So it's a we are discussing a metastatic pancreatic cancer, 60-year male diabetic with good performance status, equal PS1, and
Yes.
you
So what will be your treatment, Saurav? So what will be your treatment
Acha,
regimen for this patient? PS1,
so
therapy.
metastatic CA pancreas.
so probably FOLFIRINOX
Yes, either Fulfirinox or Napaclizine.
or Gem. Yeah. Very
So
true.
these
Yes.
two are the options, my options.
So so this patient, yeah. And next, Ashish.
Germline presentation.
So this patient so was started on a fulfillment. He just completed one dose. So my plan is that I will finish up with the 6 cycles. We look at the tolerability and then modify. And by this time, with the help of AstraZeneca coupon, I have sent for a BRCA1 and BRCA2, that is germline mutations. And supposedly this patient completes 6 cycles and has a response in terms of either a PR or a stable disease. And this patient supposedly turns out to be a BRCA2. So how you are going to treat this patient, Saurav?
So basically, if it turns out to be BRCA2, I would definitely like to give olaparib maintenance for him.
Okay. So what will be the dose and what is your expectations? How will counsel the patient?
So this patient has only completed one cycle of FOLFIRINOX. No,
Yeah, so now
how many
so
cycles?
now it is an hypothetical situation, because in reality
Okay,
this
so
patient, so this patient completes a 6 cycles and attains a
6 cycles.
stable disease.
Very good. So that is what I would first see, that if he is exposed to this the dose and he has a stable disease or a partial response, then he would be rightly the candidate for olaparib. The dose which I would like to give him is that standard 300 milligram twice daily. And of course, I will tell him that the responses will take some time to see. So in order to see a benefit, we have to wait for some time on the drug. So it is not like immediately we give and immediately we start to see the benefit. And toxicities also I'll explain to him with olaparib whatever toxicities, and we'll continue the therapy till progression.
Yeah, Prashant, so what are the expected toxicity and how will you counsel the patient?
So
Is
of
he,
Fulfirinox.
not fulfillinox. Now
So,
we have moved from fulfillinox to a maintenance of an olaparib in a BRCA2 positive patients. So what are will be your toxicities are similar what we see in ovarian and breast cancers on our PARP inhibitors?
almost it will be similar in pancreatic cancer. Like there will be because right now I have 4 patients, though not in pancreatic but ovarian and breast. So they usually presents with anemia, neutropenia, rarely thrombocytopenia, so nausea, vomiting. So these are the common side effects. What we have seen fatigue. So we have seen just like the patients of ovarian and breast cancer, we used to treat olaparib. So almost the toxicities we have to look similarly in breast and ovarian cancer.
So anemia is quite common because I am also
Yes.
running a trial on olaparib in
So
breast and ovary. So I think so many
yes,
of these patients are treated with like IV iron or
yes.
darbepoetin. So these are so
All my
so
5 patients, all my 5 patients, they present with anemia.
right, absolutely.
Almost 4 5 hemoglobin.
And
So
second commonest is a GI nausea and vomiting.
yes.
Saurabh, so now, so what will be your expected response rate and survival? So if this patient would have chosen, suppose BRCA negative, or in spite of BRCA negative, probably he wouldn't have afford for an olaparib. So how do you counsel this patient to go on to PARP inhibitors? So what will be your experience? So what will be expected responses versus
With
the
PAP.
placebo
Okay.
with
So,
olaparib? Yeah.
so basically, if it is a BRCA mutated and he is started on PARP inhibitor, so out of we can say out of 5 patient, 1 patient would have a response. that is some clinical response in the form of are there a partial response or a complete response. And beyond that also another 20% of, that means total around 50% of the patients will gain some clinical benefit in the form of partial response, complete response, and stable disease. So there will be another patient, so 1 in 2 patient will have a definite clinical benefit. If you don't give olaparib only with placebo, responses are very feeble. So let us say out of 20 patients, around 3% response rates, and here response rates are 25%. So definitely those who are symptomatic probably can get benefit from this drug.
So in the Polo trial, we have seen the placebo versus those who were on olaparib. So there was a doubling of response rate. So for 11 to 22,
11
and
to 20.
yeah, even with the survival also you can see. So it was almost a double of PFS1. So if you are Saurabh is ready with the slides, we can discuss on the Polo. That was the intent of the meeting. So we can rest discuss in the Polo trial. Yeah.
Thank you.
Ashish.
Slides can be played from their end.
Please, Saurabh sir, slide, sir.
You
Yeah.
can please play the slide.
Please.
Yes, sir. I'm making Saurabh sir's slide. Is this the one, sir?
Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. So this slide was supposed to be coming beforehand, but because of some technical glitches, we are presenting it now. So this is the latest addition of the PARP inhibitors in malignancy, metastatic pancreatic cancer. Next slide. So today we'll be having next slide. We'll be discussing on the Polo trial. Next. So if you see over the last 4 decades, there has been a very minimal improvement in the outcomes of patients with pancreatic cancer. Although in all other subsets, ovarian, kidney, bladder, breast, prostate, malignant melanomas, there has been a significant improvement in the 1 year, 5 year, and 10-year survival. Most of these improvements have been driven by targetable mutations. Unfortunately, in pancreatic cancer, the pace has been very slow. Maximum what we have done is that we have improved on the chemotherapies. Next slide. So this is what I was alluding to. Initially, we had only 5-FU, then gemcitabine, subsequently a combination of gemcitabine with nab-paclitaxel, which is currently standard of care in patients who are less than PS1. In patients who are PS0 or 1, modified FOLFIRINOX will be the standard of care, and this has led to the best survival overall. So as you can see, not much other than all varieties of chemotherapies, and as you keep on adding more chemotherapy, you end up having lots and lots of toxicities also. So these are difficult regimens. Next slide. So in this background, we have the Polo trial. Next. So this homologous recombination deficiency, it is predictive of a response to platinum therapy in metastatic pancreatic cancer. So the sine qua non for any of these pancreatic cancer patients to be put on olaparib is that they must demonstrate sensitivity to platinums. And platinum sensitivity can be there if these tumors demonstrate HRD or homologous recombination deficiency. Previous studies have shown that if there is homologous recombination deficiency, it can be prognostic for overall survival in comparison to those who do not have who do not have homologous recombination deficiency, and hazard ratio is 0.25. As you can see here, those patients with homologous recombination HRD, overall survival is 19.8, which is higher than non-HRD. If you are treating them with platinum, you go on adding another 4 months of overall survival benefit with platinum. So that is 23.8 months and 17.1 months if it's non-HRD with platinum. However, if you don't give platinum in this HRD, the overall survival plummets. So meaning to say that HRD is a prognostic or predictive of response to platinum agents, and this is necessary before you start the patients on olaparib. Next slide. So the Polo trial study design, next slide. So all these patients were metastatic pancreatic adenocarcinoma. All of them had a germline BRCA mutation. The ECOG PS was 0 or 1, and they had at least 4 months of exposure of first-line platinum-based chemotherapy for the metastatic pancreatic carcinoma, and they had either a stable disease or a partial response or a complete response. So they were platinum responsive before they were put on or randomized to olaparib. And if at all they had some persistent grade more than 2 toxicity, then that should be addressed also. And after completion of this at least 4 months of chemotherapy, they were randomized in a 3:2 fashion to either ulaparib 300 milligram twice daily or to the placebo arm. The primary endpoint was progression-free survival. Secondary endpoints were overall survival, progression-free survival 2, and other endpoints, overall responses, disease control rates, and quality of life. Next slide. So these were the variety of chemotherapy regimens which these patients were exposed to. So since this, they have to be receiving any form of platinum-based chemotherapy, so we cannot see the regimen of gemcitabine and nab-paclitaxel here. Although if you are to give gemcitabine nab-paclitaxel, you have to combine some other form of platinum along with that. Most of the patients were exposed to a combination of FOLFIRINOX or a version of FOLFIRINOX, either FOLFOX or GEMOX, gemcitabine cisplatin, Zelox. So some form of platinum has to be included in the regimen if you want to give chemotherapy in such patients. Next slide. So this was the largest study cohort which demonstrated that hello.
बारह सौ 45 लोग रेजिस्टर করছে ये সৌম্য স্যার না সৌরভ স্যার बहुत ढीला दिखाई মানে তার প্রোগ্রাম সরিয়ে আমি জয়েন করছি এটা রেগুলার এটা ফার্স্ট টাইম নয় এটা রেগুলার স্যার পেশেন্ট চিহ্ন স্যার আগে শেয়ার করছিল যে এই চিহ্ন স্যার বেটার बाहर है अब प्रशंसा से बेकार है जो ये एससीजी है ना सीरियस नहीं प्रशंसा ज्वाइन करना थे हैं प्रशंसा को पार्टिसिपेशन আছে हां अच्छा आशीष
Yes, sir.
मु स्लाइड टा ये कर दे मु कहि दउची
Yes.
सर तो जॉइन करना थी मने
No, sir. Prashant sir join.
ये
Join कर सौरभ sir join कर.
So am I audible? Am
Yes.
I audible?
Yes.
Ghanshyam bhai, am I audible?
yes sir you are audible
Yeah. Sorry. So basically this study, it showed that around 7.4% of the patients would have a overall mutation rate. Mind it, this is a germline BRCA mutation. There may be additional patients who may have a somatic BRCA mutation also. But for this trial, they included patients who had a germline BRCA mutation. Next slide. So as you can see here, over 30% of the patients on Orlaparib arm were still going on treatment at data cutoff in comparison to 13% with placebo arm. Next slide. So this is the baseline patient characteristics, and it is very much balanced. The BRCA mutation, if you see, 67% of the patients had a germline BRCA2 mutation and 31% had a BRCA1 mutation. We know that BRCA2 mutated patients are more susceptible to pancreatic cancer in comparison to BRCA1 mutation. And the median time from diagnosis to randomization was around 6.9 to 7 months. So let us say the median duration of first line chemotherapy was 5 months. So after that, again another 1.9 to 2 months, that is around 8 weeks before the randomization happened. So most of these patients had maintained responses during this 5 to 7 months period before they were put on Olaparib. This is very important. Next slide. So metastasis sites, they were also balanced, most common liver and then other sites. Most of these patients did not have an obstructive jaundice. So most of them probably had distal pancreas or mid pancreas rather than the head of the pancreas. Around 99% did not have any biliary stenting because they did not have any obstruction, favorable subset. Next. So this was, I have again discussed. So most of the regimens were cisplatin or oxaliplatin based. So platinum based regimens, and predominantly FOLFIRINOX because they were very fit patients, 0 or 1. PS was 0 or 1. And best response on first line treatment, if you can see. So there was 50% of the patients had a partial response or complete response, and another 50% had stable disease. So they had a partial response or complete response or stable disease to the first line chemotherapy, and then they were randomized. Next slide. So this is the primary result. So there is a doubling of the progression-free survival. Olaparib significantly improved progression-free survival, reducing the risk of progression or death by 47% compared to placebo. In the placebo arm, the median progression-free survival was 3.8, and in the Olaparib arm, the median progression-free survival was 7.4. You can see the graphs almost starting to separate around 4 to 5 months. Till that time, the graphs are almost kissing each other, and around 4 to 5 months, you can see that there is a very nice separation before you see this significant improvement in progression-free survival with a hazards ratio of 0.53. Confidence interval is 0.35 to 0.82 and a significant p-value of 0.004. Next slide. So 30% of the patients were progression free at 6 months. You can 6 months, whereas the percentage of patients who were progression free on placebo was 23%. It was 53% with Olaparib. Again, at 12 months, 1/3 of the patients are progression free, and you can see subsequently the percentage drop in the responses is coming down. So 53, then 33, then 27, then 22, meaning to say that those who had a response maintained that response for quite some time. That is very important again. So those who are responding will keep on responding for a longer duration. Next slide. So you see here, if you start with metastatic carcinoma pancreas, here median 5 months before you go on randomization. So 5 months benefit from first line chemotherapy. Then you wait for around 4 to 8 weeks. So another 2 months, 5 plus to 7 months. Then when you add Olaparib after randomization, you get a PFS of 7.4 months. So adding up around 14.4 months on this therapy if you are on Olaparib arm. If you are on off Olaparib only on placebo arm, you can see that 5 months, then another 2 to 7 months, then 3.8, 11 months before you are progressing. So there is a significant improvement in the progression. Next slide. So all the subset of patients benefited from the use of Olaparib. If you go for the forest plot, you can see the germline BRCA1 or BRCA2, both of them are getting a benefit. There is something about the patient's time on first line treatment before randomization. This is interesting. You can see here those who had a response of around 16 weeks to 6 months and before the randomization, the magnitude of benefit is less in comparison to those who had olaparib after 6 months of getting chemotherapy. So more the depth of response or sensitivity to chemotherapy prior to olaparib, probably the benefit will be higher. But mind you that this subset analysis was not powered to detect a significant difference between the subgroups. So here we can just say that probably you are having a better response to chemotherapy, you are going to probably, and longer response, you are probably going to attain a better benefit from olaparib. Next slide. So this is the most patients who received a PARP inhibitor as a subsequent line of therapy received olaparib. So if you progressed on placebo, you would probably receive olaparib in the subsequent line. Next slide. So 23% of the patients with measurable disease at baseline had a response to olaparib treatment. This was what we were discussing. So whereas 11.5% was the response rate with placebo, there was a doubling response rate with olaparib up to 23. So over the odds ratio was 2.3. There were a complete response also, which is unheard of after the chemotherapy, and there was partial response of 1%. Disease control rate overall was 53%. So 1 in 2 patient will have a disease control if you are starting him on olaparib. There will be a complete response. There will be few partial responses also. And as you can see, the last part, the median duration of response from onset of response was around 25 months. So meaning to say those who would respond will keep on responding. So here it is beyond 2 years. Median duration of response in those patients who were responding to olaparib was beyond 2 years, but in placebo it was only 3.7 months. So these are the very few subset of patients who will actually benefit from olaparib, and they should be offered olaparib. Next slide. So this is the overall, over half of the patients on olaparib had disease control. We are discussing this also. So 50% of patients will have a disease control with olaparib. Next. So time points, so median progression-free survival 7.4 versus 3.8 months. PFS2, randomization to second progression. If you are receiving olaparib, the second progression will be at around 13 months. If you are receiving placebo, it will be around 9 months. So OS, obviously, because some patients have crossed over to the olaparib arm, and also the study was not powered to detect a difference in overall survival. At this maturity, the overall survival is not different. Next slide. So toxicity we were discussing, most of the toxicity will be in the form of GI toxicity and hematologic toxicity in the form of anemia. Known toxicities already from previously, no unusual toxicity in this trial. Next slide. So adverse effects of special interest were in line with rates seen in previous trials of olaparib, like MDS-ML, no events, pneumonitis, one non-serious, new primary malignancies, one rectal and one potential ovarian cancer. So these were no new signals of toxicity. Next slide. So the conclusions from this study can be that the POLO regimen establishes a new paradigm for biomarker-driven approach to treatment for pancreatic cancer. Olaparib maintenance following platinum therapy significantly improves progression-free survival in patients with germline BRCA mutated metastatic pancreatic cancer in comparison to placebo. Median progression-free survival was improved by 3.6 months with olaparib treatment compared to placebo, which was statistically significant. Twice as many patients were progression-free following olaparib treatment compared to placebo at all time points assessed. So 22.1% of the patients were progression-free at 22 years on the olaparib arm compared to only 9.6% in the placebo arm. And approximately 1/5 of all patients had a response while on olaparib maintenance, the majority of which were very durable response with a median duration of response of over 2 years. Overall survival and PFS2 are not mature and follow-up study are consistent with the profile olaparib. Most common adverse events were nausea, fatigue, and anemia. So that is all I would like to conclude. For me, this is a very landmark development We have to ensure that patients go on a platinum regimen. We have to do mutation at the baseline, start them on a platinum based regimen, and once they attain a good response, we try to put them on the olaparib. Thank you. Over to you, Ghanshyam bhai.
Thank you, Saurav. Thank you, Saurav. So definitely, it is a path breaking and a breakthrough. If we talk about a cancer where no much of development besides few chemotherapy regimens, so I think so that makes sense that we should do all our patients of pancreatic cancers on at least this germline BRCA. And the good part is that now most of us are getting the benefit from the AstraZeneca coupon. So even the cost of doing the test also is halved. So thank
So
you.
just one thing,
Yeah.
Ghanshyam bhai,
Sorry.
can I just ask a question? So since this study is saying that we have to start on platinum based chemotherapy, but as we know, many of our patients will not be able to get FOLFIRINOX. So many of them will be on Gem nab-pacli. So if we are giving Gem nab-pacli and they have a good response, should we put them on a olaparib? Can we?
So that is
What
that
can?
that is extrapolation that so we have always seen in ovarian cancer also that even in TNBC also. So we relate BRCA positivity or BRCA-ness with a platinum sensitivity. Okay. So that's why the newer guideline says if he is a fit patient and we have done a BRCA, then probably the options are with you in terms of either FOLFIRINOX or a platinum combination. It may be a J-Moxali or James cisplatin. So that, but nobody has done that. So you can always do that. It doesn't mean that somebody who has not been exposed to, but the trial setting was such that. So if we talk about the science, if we talk about the phase 3 trial, so that was based on a platinum component.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So thank you, Prashant, and thank you, Saurabh, and thanks AstraZeneca for this opportunity. I hope the audience has been benefited. So I thanks Ashish from the BioLeague and the Technocrat for taking the whole pain. And for the viewers, next week, same time, we'll have afatinib in non-small cell lung cancer adenocarcinoma. You know that this is a versatile anti-EGFR, so that will be sponsored from the BI, so Boehringer. So still then, stay safe, take care, and over to Ashish.
Thank you so much, sir. And I think we have ended all the presentations, and it was indeed a very beautiful and informative session. So, for as sir said, next week same time we'll be having the webinar, which will be sponsored by BI, and the registration link and the poster we have put in the offer session, and many people have already registered for the webinar as well. So. Everyone who has registered for this webinar will be receiving an email with the certificate and the feedback links, and we will also be providing you with the links for the next week's webinar as well. So till the next time, I would urge everyone to stay safe. And I would again like to thank Dr. Ghanshyam Biswas sir, Dr. Saurabh Mishra sir, and Dr. Prasant Parida sir for the beautiful webinar. And I would also like to thank AstraZeneca for supporting us with this event. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.